Hey, I got a scary firsthand look of a brutal cybercrime called home title theft.
Hello, it's Rudy Giuliani, and I'm back with you with Rudy's Common Sense on an extraordinary period of time. This election, of course, has been the most unusual in American history. Now it's going to be the most unusual election count in American history, probably challenging Bush v. Gore. Let me tell you my experience. I've been here in Washington, D.C. for a number of days to deal first with the aftermath, the last couple of days of the election, and now with the legal matters that hang over. When I went to bed, which was very, very late on Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, I'd say around 3 or 4 in the morning, I was quite confident that President Trump had won re-election based on every criteria that I knew from prior elections, which go back to really, with any experience, John Kennedy's. And before that, as a child, I remember Eisenhower in 52. So I'm not a baby. And he had won. And I'm going to tell you how he had won and what they hadn't called. They hadn't called Pennsylvania for him as of that time. And it was only about 81 or 82% of the vote was out at that time. I'm sorry, 65% of the vote was out, and he was ahead by 15%. Impossible to win fairly, honestly, that way, when you consider that there were votes out about evenly in Philadelphia and then in the rest of the state, or the parts of the state that were pro-Trump. In order to make that up, Biden would have to get about 70% of the vote. The only way he'd get 70% of the vote is if the vote were all from Philadelphia, where he was running about there or better. Other parts of the state, he was running almost the opposite. Trump was running up margins of 65 to 85%. So if this were a fair process, even by Fox, that would have been called for him, particularly since they called Virginia very early on with a very small sample of the vote. With Trump actually ahead in Virginia, they called it for Biden. Only Fox did. CNN still hasn't called Virginia for Biden. Michigan, he was ahead by 8% with 64% of the vote cast. Again, the votes out were in both, let's call them Trump and Biden parts of the state. If you're going to call Virginia as early as they did, and you're going to call Arizona as early as you did, with considerably less of a margin for Trump to make up, to turn those states around, than existed in Michigan for Biden, then you're being unfair. You're not applying the same standard to the same to both candidates. So those are two states that should have been called for him. Georgia and North Carolina certainly should have been called for him. They were down to about 88% of the vote cast, and there was a 3.5%. I'm sorry, Georgia was 78% of the vote cast, 3.5% lead in Georgia, and a 3.5% lead in North Carolina at 80% of the vote. Those would have been just naturals. If you had called all those states that should have been called, he'd have been just a little shy of the 270 needed to win. And then you had him ahead in Wisconsin by 5% with 65% of the vote to go, which looked like it was going to go his way, particularly given the votes that were left. And you might not want to call that unless you're very, very pro-Trump. But you'd go to bed feeling, hey, we got this election won, particularly since Nevada hadn't even really started counting yet. And by every token, it looked like he was either going to win Nevada or it was going to be like that. And turns out it is like that. First thing about this election is pollsters should all retire. What's the use of having polls? I mean, this would be like, I know the weatherman is wrong, but this is like being the weatherman is wrong all the time. Every time he says rain, it's sunny. Every time he says sunny, it rains. This has been true now. I mean, according to the pollsters, Al Gore would be president. John Kerry was ahead on election night. I was there 8 o'clock at night at the Fox studios when the Fox pollster, told the executives of Fox that John Kerry was the next president. So John Kerry would have been the president. Hillary Clinton would have been the president. Why do we take them? I mean, they're so far off. This was supposed to be a landslide for Biden. Well, it certainly isn't a landslide, and he's not going to win. They were supposed to take the Senate. They did not take the Senate. They were supposed to make gains in the House. They did not make gains in the House. And why are the mistakes always why are the mistakes always mistakes where they go too pro-Democrat in order to suppress our vote, discourage our vote? And just think of what Fox did to us by calling Virginia early when CNN didn't. How many votes did they suppress in Virginia when people could still vote in other parts of the country? So, I'm sorry, I don't think you can vote anymore in Virginia, but in other parts of the country, there's still a lot of voting left. And both the Virginia call and the Arizona call in particular were very, very damaging because Arizona was made into a big deal. Biden takes Trump's state, says Fox. CNN says too close to call. I mean, just think of that. The impact of Fox calling Arizona for Biden when CNN didn't, and then making a big deal out of it. I think they were playing trumpets. Biden makes first breakthrough a campaign. Biden wins Trump's state. Maybe. Maybe not. Nobody else called it. Don't tell me that didn't have an impact on the campaign. Of course it did. It had an impact on the psychology of this, which pushed all the networks then to kind of leave out the calling the Trump states. Let's call Biden. Let's get him to 270. Let's get him to 270. This is a good time to take a break. I couldn't believe we were evicted from our home that we didn't even sell. Those are the words of a homeowner, Deborah, when she learned she was the victim of home title fraud. It's a devastating crime that can cost you your home. And title fraud is not covered by insurance or common identity theft services. The only folks to trust that I know of to protect your home's title is Home Title Lock. Cyber thieves have discovered the titles to our homes are kept online. They forge your name on your deed stating you sold your home, and they refile as the new owner. In Deborah's case, she didn't even know she was a victim until the eviction notice arrived in her mail. Home Title Lock protects you and your home by putting a virtual barrier around your home's title. The instant they detect tampering, they mobilize to shut it down. Go online to HometitleLock.com and register your address to see if you're already a victim and don't know it. Then use code Rudy, that's me, and sign up for 30 free days of protection. That's code Rudy at HometitleLock.com.
So, Arthur, I don't know if you've heard these stories. This is what.
Thank you very much for coming back. The reality of where we stand now is Pennsylvania is Trump's. If, and for any reason, that vote total changes, it has to be a fraud. Plus, there is so much evidence of fraud already in Pennsylvania. As I sit here right now, there's only about 8% of the vote to be counted. Trump's ahead by a clear 135,000. He may very well get 120,000 votes disqualified because his observers were not allowed for 21 hours to observe the mail ballots. In that case, a district court judge a lower court judge in Philadelphia, of course, ruled with the Democrats. She was a Democratic hack, but the appellate court now has reversed it and ruled with the Republicans that, in fact, there was deprival of the right of observation with regard to those 135,000 ballots, which now have to be cast aside and either taken out of the equation or re-examined. So now we have a lead of 135, and we have 135 to 140 ballots that have been taken out of the process. So not that Pennsylvania won't try to continue to cheat. Governor Wolf will cheat. But we're on top of him. We're in state court. We're in federal court. and we'll be in every court possible because we're not going to let the Democrats steal Pennsylvania. Just not going to happen. Now we go to the other states that are still out there. Georgia, he has won. It's just a matter of calling it. Just a matter of calling it. I know it's only 0.4%, but ladies and gentlemen, Milwaukee was only 0.3%. Or Michigan. Excuse me, Wisconsin. If Wisconsin can only be 0.3% and called, why isn't Georgia called at 0.4%? The only difference is Georgia, they figure there's more of a capacity for the Democrats to cheat a little, particularly the machine in Atlanta, which is, not so nice. He's won Georgia, ladies and gentlemen. If they try to fool around with it, we'll get it back legally. Believe me. North Carolina, I have no idea why they don't call North Carolina. He's ahead by 2.3%. There's 5% of the vote cast. I did the arithmetic quickly. There are 250,000 additional votes to count. For Biden to win, he'd have to win 210 of the 250,000. And they're not calling it. Tell me they're not corrupt. Tell me they're not corrupt. This is a good time to take a break. If you want a good cigar, go to a good cigar shop. You want the best, go to Famous Smoke Shop. Let Famous Smoke deliver your favorite cigars right to your doorstep at America's lowest prices. Famous opened in 1939 as a small shop in New York City. Today, it's the largest privately held American-owned cigar business in the country. That's 80 years experience in the cigar business, and they're putting that experience to work for you, making deals on the cigars you love, from affordable, everyday smokes to high-end luxury cigars for your next special occasion. Go to famous-smoke.com/Rudy and click the Activate button to apply the promo code. Pick from more than 1,000 cigar brands, fresh and ready to ship from Famous Smoke's climate-controlled, 24,000 square foot humidor. Check out with the promo code RUDY20. That's Rudy, R-U-D-Y, 20, and get $20 off your order. Every cigar purchase you make is backed by the Famous Freshness Guarantee. Get real cigars from a real cigar shop, shipped direct to you from Famous Smoke Shop. Go to famous-smoke.com/Rudy. That's famous-smoke.com/Rudy.
Cardio burns fat, right? No. Cardio actually burns calories, usually in the form of carbs in the bloodstream that are then replaced with the very next meal that you eat and stored as more fat. This is why when you even eat low-calorie foods or run for an hour a day, it seems like you get softer, but you don't actually lose any weight.
There is a simple way to completely transform your physique, like, say, Hugh Jackman did for the Wolverine movie. Hugh isn't the only one to get shredded seemingly overnight. Chris Pratt went from the chubby, lovable Andy on Parks and Rec to the cover of Men's Fitness sporting a killer set of abs. Christian Bale starved himself to skin and bone for a role just weeks before rapidly bulking up and building himself into Batman. So how did these guys do it? It's got to be steroids or designer foods that the rest of us don't have access to, right? Actually, no. The truth is that Hollywood's elite actors can get ripped while adding 12, 15, even 20 pounds of muscle in just a few weeks because they follow a long forgotten and suppressed by the fitness industry secret that was used for generations of bodybuilders and athletes before steroids were even invented.
So according to studies, there's one food that can raise your overall testosterone levels by 52% and overall sexual health by 78%. Can you guess what it is? I'm going to say probably not, because until a couple of years ago, I had never heard of this food. It's got a super weird name, but what's cool is that you can literally start eating this one food today to reclaim your masculinity, to get higher energy levels, raise your libido again, start burning fat again, start building real muscle again, and actually start feeling good. If you take a testosterone supplement to raise your testosterone levels, nothing's going to happen. Why? because there's another hormone in your body that completely destroys testosterone. And there's 4 common foods that you're probably eating right now that are doing that exact thing, causing you to feel low energy and fatigue, low libido, increased fat gain. You can't put on any muscle. And so all these things are just happening from eating foods that you could easily cut out of your diet. And when I did this, because I tried it for 30 days, my results have gone through the roof. And so I made a free video presentation to show you what these 4 foods are, and also to show you 4 foods that you can eat instead of these, so that you can really start feeling good and looking a lot better. So if you want to check it out, hit that link below while you still can.
Okay, we're going to tell you about a crime that's easier than stealing a car. That's because the stolen property is your home, your townhouse, or your apartment. More than 20 million